a beach. If you love indie tales, be sure to subscribe here and on Twitch, where I'm live most weekdays. You can also show your support through Patreon or on itch.io, where I upload assets and games shown on the channel. Welcome to a new video. We last week created a lovely alpine parallax background as part of a tutorial, and I thought today it would be really interesting to just follow that same process but with a new scene. So today we're going to be creating a beach scene in pixel art. It's going to be a parallax background, and it will be added to the asset pack or asset series that I've been creating starting last week. So we've done a snowy background, now let's do a summery beach background. I've been checking out some references here, and I'm pretty sure I know what I want in terms of colors and foreground, background elements. So let's just jump straight into it, shall we? First thing I'm going to do is just start with this background layer, and I'm going to start just with the whole thing on the one layer and just plot in some colors. So I'm going to go for my shade brush, and I'm going to treat this kind of like a thumbnail. What that means is I'm going to stay zoomed out, and I'm just going to think about the composition at the most broad level. So, you know, what are we looking at here in terms of colors? What time of day is it? You know, if we have, you know, another element here, the foreground might look like this. Maybe we've got some greens. Nice, fresh greens. I've been told that my style is similar to Bob Ross recently, so I'm kind of leaning into that here. We'll see if you guys like that in this video. Okay, just lovely flat strokes, keeping it nice and simple. And just laying down some different colors for the sand. Nice. I'm going to start breaking this out now into a different layer. So you can just select everything that's in like the lower half. You can cut it, add a new layer, and paste it. Easy as that. Then if we want, we can hide this top layer and then just work on the background. I'm actually going to go ahead and take this and make it also a new layer, and this will be the water. So I'm going to bring the water a little bit darker here underneath the sky. And I like playing with this idea of having there be kind of like the same, it's the same color ramp, but because we're playing with contrast and just proportion, like how much of one color we're using in a certain spot, we get this effect of, you can really sort of tell it apart. Even though they're all blue, you can see some structure here, and that's what I'm focusing on in this point. So just thinking about the wash of the ocean here. Gonna make some really lovely foam. And I know that as we get towards the shore and the water gets more shallow, it brightens up a little bit. So we're gonna take advantage of that. Maybe even put some of this brightest color right here. Just working them back. So it's probably time to start naming these layers. We'll name the first one Sky. What I'm going to do is see if I can just layer on a brighter green here. And that will be our layer where we stand, where the character's going to stand. Something like that. Then I'll just merge this down. So now that's our foreground. Beautiful. It should come as no surprise to you that here in Australia, it actually is summer. It's so hot today, which is why the hair is up. I'm just trying to stay cool right now. Let's not forget to tile on our x-axis here. And I'm going to start here at the seam. Make these really beautiful ocean clouds, really flat off on the horizon. And bring it right down to the waterline. Do you know, I watched the new Pixar movie Soul the other day, and it really changed my thinking. I've been a very anxious person for a long time. Even today, I get very anxious. But I'm trying to this year commit to, I guess, 2 New Year's resolutions. The first one is to sleep earlier, and the second is to be less anxious. Starting to look pretty good. Now, let's work back that second color. And we're going to use a nice big brush here. What I'm going to do is try to create a sky of clouds like last time. And I'm going to make the cloud sizes, so these sort of cumulus formations, much rounder at the top. And this will give the effect of the clouds approaching us, kind of like a blanket above the sky. So during this phase, what I'm mostly doing is just trying to find some shapes that I like. This process can be destructive as well as creative. Sometimes I just work things back because I don't really like where they're headed. But overall, I think the key thing to think about here is that as long as we're actually moving forward, right, as long as we're making choices that we like as we move, we're going to reach a destination that is a good one. I'm going to disagree with Bob Ross on this one. I think it's okay to call a mistake a mistake. It's actually totally okay. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean that you have to stay in that same state. And it doesn't mean that it was a waste of time either. Sometimes it means that you've grown. Sometimes you recognize something as bad because you've grown to have a higher standard, or you've, just got a better eye for things. Your perspective's gotten better. So it's coming along. I think I want just a little less contrast and noise in these shapes. But I wouldn't have known that I wanted them to be less mottled if I hadn't made them mottled in the first place. That's what I'm trying to say. There is something about having the darker colors contrast the light colors, which gives it a greater sense of structure. You can understand and appreciate the blues more when you see a bit of variety in the lighting. We perceive this as more saturated when it's in the same space as this. Okay, let's turn our attention to the ocean now. I'm gonna try to get rid of some of this banding that's going on here in the sand by just thinking about the makeup in terms of pixel counts. So what proportion of this space is, a given layer of sand? If they're even, then it's a bit of a problem. What I'll do is keep this, reasonably consistent. But as we did with the alpine background the other day, it's a good idea to, create some organic diversity. Maybe some suggestion of waves. Keeping the ocean nice and still will allow this to loop a lot better, but we can still have a little bit of diversity here in the water. Just this idea of, I like the idea of the calm ocean kind of glistening, and we do that by creating shorter and shorter lines here, horizontal lines that fade off onto the horizon. And to our eyes, as far as the perspective goes, these are kind of like equivalent lengths. We're telling the eye that, hey, this line here is kind of the same as this line here, but this one's further away. It just struck me as I was drawing this, thinking about the ocean, that it actually could be a good idea to animate one of these backgrounds one day. I think that would be a really interesting experiment. Okay, and I also want to try creating some more contrast here between the sky and the clouds. Maybe make it look like the clouds are casting a shadow on the bottom of the ocean there. Not so bad. Maybe just one line. Or where the clouds are more dense, we can create a deeper line to make it look like they're casting the shadow down. And I most definitely want to separate this. Cool. What I'd like to do is create some beach grass. Just little tufts that are going to stick up over this hillside. And drawing these bushes, it's kind of interesting because there's definitely a logic where the bush itself is darker in the center because there's a lot of layering going on. But you don't want to forget that there are some grass blades that are going to be closer to the camera. And so those will be, as a result, picking up more light. So it's actually kind of noisier in the center as well. Which means this area, it's very difficult to, at least if you're trying to simulate something, you know, realistically, it's very difficult to get something that looks realistic. Instead, you could go for a more stylized approach where, you know, you either keep it one layer like this. I think that the diversity helps. Or you can just ignore the fact that it's a 3D object and just give it a an internal shape. A lot of pixel art is making creative choices that are for aesthetic gain, where realism is just not possible. With the Impressionists being painters, it was the application of the paint in their strokes. Here in pixel art, it's all about repetition. Repeating shapes. You can do that with brushes too, actually. I was talking during the previous video about creating repeating shapes with a certain sized brush. So this 3-size brush, you know, we were doing alpine trees, and you can get interesting shapes just spreading out horizontally because we have that natural point at the end that's single pixel. So brushes do come into it for sure. I wonder if we are obscuring the ocean just a little too much there. Granted, we can always tackle this in Unity. We can always change this. I'm gonna add some grass now. And I'm gonna take a leaf out of Owlboy's book here. I can remember a screenshot in Owlboy that was used in the promotional art quite frequently. That it's a beautiful screenshot, but the technique that they use for the grass is particularly interesting. And I'm gonna try to replicate that here. Well, we've got grass that's in the background. Okay. And we actually show depth on one layer. Right, so we have grass sort of coming forward here until it reaches our actual layer. So it's the same color scheme, but you'll see what I mean in a bit. And this process will take you a little while, especially if you're using a mouse instead of a tablet. But it's kind of one of those tasks that's monotonous enough that you can just enjoy it. So the blades of grass, right, can go from anywhere from a single pixel to 2 pixels to 3 single pixels to 3 with 1 on the side. You can even have a step one like this. And just mixing up these few shapes is enough to give the impression that, you know, all of these blades of grass are as detailed as the biggest ones. That's the trick. Your eye likes to find rules and then apply those rules mentally to things that it can't make out, to kind of assume. You know, you assume detail. It's like, oh, okay, well, if these are only a single pixel, that must be because they're smaller versions of this thing, which is a much bigger shape, right? So I'm actually creating, you know, the same shapes just in front in a darker color to soften the transition between this color and this color. I've said this before on camera in the last video, and as I've been rewatching, because I always rewatch my videos just to make sure I don't say anything silly, I use this term dithering to describe what's happening here. Just to clarify that, dithering is it's a technique that we use to create a transition between two colors. And there are a different series of formulas that we can use to create that dither. And so if I was to just draw one now between, say, these colors, this is what it looks like, right? And so there's really only two colors here, but it's the density of which color we're using, which creates this, appearance of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shades, you could say. So what I like to do is, it's the same principle, but it's applied using shapes. So I say, we're dithering between this color and this color with the shapes, softening the transition with a pattern, basically. I'm really liking this scene. I'm getting kind of like caught up in it. I like it a lot. I think this foreground's going to be where it's all going to have to come together. I can sort of see it, but you always leave room for a bit of experimentation, right? So far, so good. Let's go ahead and begin to export this into the different layers and try it out in our parallax scene. I think what it would be really nice is to see at least one more break in the ocean between this layer and that blue way off on the horizon. Or perhaps a better way to think about this would be to take the clouds that are here and make them their own layer of sky. And we'll call that horizon. So there we've got this. We're going to go back just a little bit, bring this forward, and this is going to be our horizon. See if that changes it. There we go. Okay, let's create some stuff that's going to sit on the sand. Maybe some stone formations. You can see already just creating any kind of formation, because it's going to be repeated, we have to be very careful. Unless we create these as objects that will be spawning in at random, which is an option for sure. I love rocks. I love drawing them. Don't know why. I think it's just fun. They're simple shapes, you don't really have a lot of constraints that you have to stick to. And I think I've realized that I want to create some more shapes here. Just in the sand, just little variances. Okay, cool. Let's take all of that and export it as a layer. I'm thinking the grass is maybe a little big or a little obstructive. This stuff here, if I bring it down just a tad, that might make this a little easier. I think I also want to bring these rocks up. Pretty good. So, the next question is, what does our foreground look like? I think what we'll do is something similar to what I've done in the past, where we've got this edge that defines the cross-section of the terrain. Sort of like a lip. Just got to make sure I don't screw this up too much. I don't usually want to go straight down into this darkest color. It would be nice if we had something that we could sort of blend into it. This dirt is it's a bit cliche. It's a little bit Minecrafty, but I think that's what the people like. So as I was saying, I was watching Soul the other day, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a top movie. Probably one of Pixar's best in a long time, actually. Maybe since like WALL-E or Up. And I really appreciated the subject matter. You know, it's about death and accepting it, and also life, you know, and how to live it. And I think that's something that we don't really stop and ask ourselves very often is, you know, are we living the life that we want to live? And are the things that we think are important to us, like, really the things that are going to make us happy at the end of the day? It's very easy to chase a goal, expecting to be happy once you reach the finish line. And look, personally, you know, I'm not really at that place yet, so I can't tell you whether my goal is the thing that I'm expecting to make me happy and whether it will or not. But I guess the old adage of, you know, it's the journey, not the destination, is something that, at least in this case, in the movie, is something that's the message. And I think it's a good message still. We spend so much of our life working on goals. If you wait to achieve the goals to be happy, you're going to be waiting a long time if you're doing anything worth doing. The game that I'm making, I've been making it since 2017, working on it full time. And I know that I still have a couple of years to go, you know, still. And it may even be more than a couple. And to know that, and to still expect happiness to come after, is kind of the same as committing myself to, you know, more than half of a decade of unhappiness, which is not a very nice prospect. Nobody wants that. But if you can find happiness in the journey, then you can actually be happy while you're making something. You don't have to sacrifice happiness in order to be productive or to achieve your dreams. I would say, though, it's very easy for me to allow pressures outside of working on the game to make me feel like I'm not allowed to be happy until I've completed it. Things like money and, you know, outside factors that don't really have anything to do with the game itself. I wonder if this is too many layers of grass. What I want is like a flat platform that the player can think of as the level. I wonder if it would be better if I darkened this instead of brightened everything else. Probably not. Too dark. I think we definitely want this shade, and probably in the proportion that we've got it right now. Just a little concerned that we've hit a lot of noise here all of a sudden. Yeah, I think these two layers are so close together they might as well be one layer. And if they're going to be one layer, well, we can try experimenting with spreading them out, but that's actually not so bad now that we look at it. What do you think? We could have some birds actually circling. They would be like animated, but we could have them still. I wonder if that would be really weird to look at. Let's just try. I mean, it kind of works. Almost like they're flying against the wind. I wish I could animate this. I think I will animate it. Like, I think I will approach some method of animating this stuff at some point. But I don't think that I'm going to do that for this video, because I use such a different technique for animating in Unity. I guess one thing we could do if we wanted to be really clever. You know what? I'm going to do it, actually. Check this out. So keep that color. Select this. Copy. Paste. Down, 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 down. One layer lighter. Paste. That was a bit easier. Yep, that was the way to do it. Sometimes those cheap tricks, they feel cheap, and sometimes they feel right. And just then I think that one felt right. There's maybe one more thing we could do, which was for the extreme foreground, if we want to add that. So you only want it to just come right up against your layer so that you don't obscure the gameplay, but you want it to know that it's in front. And I'm actually going to give it quite a lot of space, and then I'm going to bring it down. This is mostly just so that the asset itself has a lot more control, like the player the user of the asset can do more with it, but it'll be lower down in the actual scene. Just trying to take a bit of a lesson from last episode. The ground, the lowest level, or like the very foreground, was too close to the bottom of the canvas for me to give it much height. Pretty good. Where are we at now? I think if I just bring this in, you will see that it looks good. There we go. A beach. That's it for today. I think I'll leave it there. I could see myself adding to this at some point. Maybe taking away some of the complexity on some of these layers, but I'm really happy with where this is at right now. I had a lot of fun. Hope you had a lot of fun too. I will see you in the next one. Hey pal, thanks for watching, and thanks most especially to the patrons and Twitch subs who support this channel and my game dev project Insignia. To find out more, click the links in the description below. And if you like this video, tell YouTube by clicking the like button, and then YouTube will tell me, and then I'll make more videos. That's nice. Thanks again, and until next time.